spring air of Lakemont was filled with the scent of blooming magnolia and the sound of music coming from the James Dewey High School gymnasium. Prom night, the event all high school students had been waiting for, was in full swing. Garlands of gold and blue ribbons, the school colors, hung from the ceiling, shimmering in the light of specially installed spotlights. A DJ played the latest hits, and the dance floor was filled with young men in smart suits and girls in evening gowns. Isaiah Bennett was the star of the evening. In an elegant emerald tux that set off his smooth, dark complexion, he attracted everyone's attention, not only with his flawless appearance but also with his confidence. A gold medalist, student council president, and future Howard Law School student, he epitomized success and determination. "Prom King!" someone shouted as he walked past a group of classmates. Isaiah smiled, but there was tension in his eyes. He looked around nervously, as if searching for someone in the crowd. In the corner of the hall, not far from the makeshift photo area, stood the parents of the graduates. Among them stood out an elegant woman in an austere dark blue suit, Serena Bennett, Isaiah's stepmother. Her impeccable posture and cold gaze created an invisible zone of alienation around her. Next to her was Darren Bennett, Isaiah's father, a large man with graying temples, watching his son with pride. Serena glanced back and forth at her husband, and then to the other end of the hall where a group of teachers were watching the festivities. Among them was Corey Jenkins, a tall, charismatic history teacher, a favorite of students and colleagues. The celebration continued. The DJ announced a slow dance, and couples swirled in the center of the room. Isaiah was standing by the refreshments table when Serena approached him. "You look great, darling," she said, holding out a glass of punch. "I'm so proud of you." Isaiah took the glass but was in no hurry to drink. "Thank you," he replied dryly. Something akin to contempt flashed in his eyes. "Your father wants to take some family photos," Serena continued, fixing her perfectly styled hair. "Of course," Isaiah nodded. "Only I need to step out first." Serena followed his gaze as he headed for the exit of the hall, then quickly looked around and followed him. About 30 minutes had passed. Darren Bennett looked around restlessly, searching for his son and wife. "Has anyone seen Isaiah?" he asked a group of female graduates standing nearby. "He went to the restroom," one of the girls replied. "But that was a long time ago." Darren headed toward the boys' restroom and asked one of the passing teachers to see if his son was there. A moment later, the entire hallway was silenced by a piercing scream. The lifeless body of Isaiah Bennett was discovered in one of the toilet stalls, his head in a toilet bowl filled with vomit. His elegant emerald tux was stained, and his once perfect hair was reduced to wet, tangled strands. Instantly, the alarm went up. The school principal called an ambulance and the police while trying to keep the students and parents calm. The prom was interrupted, and everyone was asked to remain in the auditorium until law enforcement arrived. Detective Elijah Worthing arrived on the scene 20 minutes after the call. Tall, with an athletic build, wearing an impeccably ironed suit, he moved with the confidence of a man who knew his job precisely. His attentive eyes quickly assessed the situation without missing a single detail. The scene had already been secured. The paramedics had pronounced death, and the forensics team had begun their work. Worthing put on gloves and cautiously examined the body, still untouched from the discovery. "What do we have?" he asked the first arriving patrolman. "Isaiah Bennett, 18 years old, found dead in a toilet stall. Supposedly had too much alcohol, passed out while vomiting, and choked to death. Prom night, you understand." Detective Worthing frowned. "Who discovered the body?" "Ms. Clark, the literature teacher." The boy's father was concerned that his son was missing for a long time and asked her to check the restroom. The detective looked around the stall carefully. There was no bottle or glass of alcohol nearby. Only traces of vomit and water were visible on the floor. "Where are the parents?" he asked, straightening up. "In the principal's office. Father's in shock, barely speaks. Stepmother's trying to calm him down." "Stepmother?" "Yes, Serena Bennett. They've been married for 5 years." Worthing nodded and headed for the principal's office. On the way, he stopped by the gym, where the graduating seniors and their parents remained under the supervision of teachers and a few officers. "I need to speak to Isaiah Bennett's close friends," he addressed the nearest officer, "and with anyone who last saw him before the incident." In the principal's office, Darren Bennett sat with his head down on his hands. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. Serena stood next to him, straight as a string, with red but dry eyes. "Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, I'm Detective Elijah Worthing," he introduced himself. "Allow me to offer my condolences for your loss." Darren raised his head. His face was contorted with grief. My little boy. I realize this isn't the best time, but I need to ask some questions," the detective continued. "Did Isaiah use alcohol? Has he had a problem with it before?" "Never," Darren exclaimed. "He wouldn't even drink champagne on New Year's Eve. Said it interfered with mental clarity." "Then what could have happened today?" "Graduation," Serena said quietly. "A special day. Perhaps he decided to celebrate in a special way." Worthing looked at the woman carefully. Her voice was steady, but the fingers clutching her purse were white with tension. "When was the last time you saw Isaiah?" "He said he had to go out," Serena replied. I can't exactly say. It was as if time had stopped." "And you, Mr. Bennett?" "I was talking to Jamal's father, his classmate. Then I looked for Isaiah for family photos and didn't find any." Worthing made a note in his notebook. "Did either of you go into the men's restroom before Isaiah was found there?" Darren shook his head. Serena said slowly, "I was looking for him, looked in the restroom, but I didn't see anyone. All the stalls were closed. I figured he was somewhere with his friends." The detective nodded. "Thank you. I'll get back to you with more questions." Back in the hallway, Worthing met the medical examiner, Dr. Ramona Giles. "This is a strange situation," she said without preamble. "Preliminarily, death occurred about an hour ago. The cause appears to be asphyxia due to drowning. But there are nuances." "Like what?" "First of all, there's hardly any odor of alcohol. Second, there are pressure marks on his neck. Not pronounced but noticeable. Like someone held his head in water." Worthing frowned. "You don't think it's an accident?" "Can't say for sure yet. We need to do a full autopsy." At that moment, a young officer approached the detective. "Sir, we've interviewed several friends of the deceased. They all say the same thing. Isaiah didn't drink tonight. Only punch. He was against alcohol in general." "Thank you." Worthing nodded and returned to the scene. He took another close look at the toilet stall. Something didn't add up in the picture of the accident. If the boy hadn't been drinking, where had the vomiting gotten so bad? And why couldn't he lift his head out of the toilet? In the hallway, he spotted Serena Bennett standing at the window. She seemed calm, but her gaze was blank, directed nowhere. Noticing the detective, she quickly turned away and headed toward her husband. Worthing approached a group of teachers, including Corey Jenkins. The history teacher looked shaken, his normally confident posture replaced by the slouch of a man under heavy weight. "Mr. Jenkins, I'd like to talk to you about Isaiah Bennett," the detective addressed him. "Of course," Corey nodded, casting a brief glance in Serena's direction. "What was Isaiah like as a student?" "Brilliant. One of the best of my entire career. He had an analytical mind and a desire for justice. He was going to be a lawyer." "Did he have any problems? Conflicts with anyone?" Corey hesitated. "Not so much conflicts. He was principled. Sometimes it created tension." "With whom exactly?" "With the other students, mostly. He didn't tolerate lies and deceit." Worthing noticed the teacher glancing at Serena again. "And with his family? What was his relationship like with his father and stepmother?" "With his father? Wonderful. Darren adored him." "And with Mrs. Bennett?" "It's more complicated. You know how it is with blended families." "No, I don't. Tell me." "Well, sometimes there was tension. Serena is a perfectionist and Isaiah was independent. But I didn't notice any open conflicts." The detective made a few more notes. "Thank you for the information, Mr. Jenkins. I may have to have another conversation with you." By late afternoon, the school was empty. Isaiah's body had been taken to the morgue. Forensics were finishing up their work at the scene. Worthing sat in the empty classroom, reviewing notes and photos from the scene. Something was bugging him. Some detail he'd missed. The phone rang. It was Dr. Giles. "Elijah, are you still at the school? I have the preliminary toxicology results." "Go ahead." "There's alcohol in Isaiah's blood, but the concentration is too low to cause unconsciousness. But there's something interesting, traces of flunitrazepam. A rape drug." "Exactly. Combined with even a small amount of alcohol, it could cause severe dizziness, nausea, and unconsciousness." Worthing exhaled slowly. "So someone put the drug in his drink." "It would appear so. And given the bruising on his neck." "Elijah, I don't think we're dealing with an accident." The detective closed the notebook. A picture was beginning to emerge, and it was much darker than it had originally appeared. A harmless prom night had turned into a crime scene, and the death of a promising young man was not a tragic accident, but a cold-blooded murder. The morning was cool but clear. Detective Worthing sat in his office, looking at the photographs of the scene. The case, which initially seemed like a tragic accident, had now taken on a sinister hue. A bright, promising boy had been murdered on a day that should have been one of the happiest of his life. Who would want to eliminate Isaiah Bennett, and why? Worthing's first order of business was to request the school's surveillance footage from prom night. It was standard protocol in such investigations. Visual evidence could tell more than dozens of witness statements. But the tech department said it would take at least 24 hours to process all the recordings. The school's CCTV system was outdated, with many blind spots and poor image quality. "Prepare especially carefully the footage from the corridor near the boys' toilet and from the drinks table," Worthing ordered. "And see if there are any cameras that may have recorded Serena Bennett's movements." While waiting for the results of the video footage to be analyzed, the detective decided to waste no time and began by researching the family history. He learned from the case files that Darren Bennett had been widowed 6 years ago, when his wife was killed in a car accident. Isaiah was 12 at the time. A year later, Darren met Serena Bishop, a successful realtor, and they were married a few months after meeting. He was quick to find a replacement, the detective muttered as he looked through photos from social media. In them, Darren and Serena looked like the perfect couple. Successful, attractive, with beaming smiles at all the official events. Isaiah was also smiling in those photos, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Worthing noticed that the distance between him and his stepmother in the photographs increased over time. In the last pictures, they stood on opposite sides of Darren, as if avoiding direct contact. The next step was to interview Isaiah's classmates. Worthing chose 3 of the deceased's closest friends based on information from his phone and social media. The first to arrive at the police station was Anaya Fields, a frail girl with crying eyes and nervous movements. "Isaiah was my best friend since 7th grade," she began, rubbing the bracelet on her wrist. "We were preparing for college together. He wanted to be a civil rights attorney." "What was he like?" Worthing asked. "Determined, principled, sometimes even too much so. If he thought something was wrong, he didn't keep quiet, even if it caused problems." "Did he have any conflicts at school?" Anaya nodded. "Last year, he exposed a group of high school students who were selling answers to tests. A lot of people were mad at him, but Isaiah said fairness was more important than popularity." "And personal conflicts? Maybe with any of the guys?" "No, he wasn't seriously dating anyone. Said college was more important than romance." "How was his relationship with his family? With his father? With his stepmother?" Anaya hesitated. "With Mr. Bennett, everything was fine. He loved him very much, supported him in everything. But with Mrs. Bennett, more complicated." "In what way?" "They were very different. Isaiah was the straightforward one, and his stepmother is, how shall I put it, slippery. Always smiling, but her gaze is cold." Isaiah said he never knew what Serena was really thinking. "Did they have any open conflicts?" "Not in front of me. But in the last couple of months, Isaiah had gotten kind of tense, especially when it came to family. He'd cancel our meetings, say he had something important to deal with. Worthing made a note in his notebook. He didn't say what exactly? No. But one day, I saw him watching his stepmother through the school library window. Mrs. Bennett was standing in the parking lot talking to Mr. Jenkins, our history teacher. They were standing very close to each other. When I asked Isaiah what he was doing, he quickly moved away from the window and said he was just taking a break from class. This information interested the detective. He remembered the strange looks exchanged between Serena and Corey Jenkins at the prom. Did you notice anything unusual about Mrs. Bennett and Mr. Jenkins's relationship? Anaya shrugged. I don't know. Mr. Jenkins was Isaiah's class teacher, so they talked a lot. But sometimes it seemed like there was something between them. Looks, and they were often around each other at school functions. After talking to Anaya, Worthing met with two more of Isaiah's friends. They confirmed the image of a principled, determined young man who wasn't afraid to speak his mind. None of them mentioned any obvious conflicts with his stepmother, but all of them noted a strange tension between Isaiah and Serena lately. Worthing decided to test a hunch about a possible connection between Serena and the history teacher. He arranged a meeting with Corey Jenkins at the school under the pretense of getting more information about Isaiah's academic life. Jenkins met the detective in his classroom, a spacious room with maps and historical posters on the walls. The teacher looked tired, with eyes red from lack of sleep. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Mr. Jenkins, Worthing began. I'm trying to put together a complete picture of Isaiah Bennett's life. Of course, detective. How can I help you? Before we continue, if this story has you hooked, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell notification. We bring you real, emotionally gripping true crime stories that deserve to be heard, and you won't want to miss what happens next. You were his classroom teacher. How would you characterize him? Isaiah was an exceptional student, smart, hardworking, with a strong sense of justice. Sometimes that caused problems. He didn't always realize that the world isn't black and white. And how were his relationships with other teachers? With his classmates? With teachers, fine. Everyone respected him. With his classmates, it was more difficult. Not everyone liked his principled behavior, but he had no real enemies. Worthing noticed Jenkins tapping his fingers nervously on the table. What about his family? Did you have much contact with his parents? The teacher visibly tensed. Mostly with Mrs. Bennett. She was actively involved in Isaiah's school life, attending parent-teacher conferences, helping with organizing activities. And Mr. Bennett? He's been busy with work. The construction business requires a lot of time. How would you describe the relationship between Isaiah and his stepmother? Jenkins averted his gaze. Complicated, as is often the case in these situations. Serena tried her best, but Isaiah still missed his real mother. Worthing decided to get to the direct question. Mr. Jenkins, what is your relationship with Serena Bennett? The teacher flinched. What do you mean? Several witnesses have noted a certain intimacy between the two of you. That's absurd, Jenkins replied, a little too quickly. We just know each other well through school activities. Lakemont is a small town, detective. And yet, Worthing insisted, watching the teacher's reaction carefully, you've been seen together outside of school, in situations that are hard to explain as professional relationships. Corey swallowed. I don't understand what you're getting at. And what does this have to do with Isaiah's tragic death? That's what I'm trying to find out, the detective replied calmly. Did Isaiah know something he wasn't supposed to know? Jenkins stood up abruptly. I think we should end this conversation. If you have any more questions, feel free to contact my attorney. Worthing nodded, wrote down the attorney's contact information, and left the school, more certain of his suspicions. Back at the station, the detective found that CSI had unlocked Isaiah's cell phone. Among the many photos, messages, and notes, there was something that caught his attention. A series of pictures taken in apparent secrecy. They showed Serena and Corey Jenkins sitting in a cafe, holding hands. Another photo showed them kissing in a car in an empty parking lot. The dates on the pictures indicated they were taken within the last month. "That's it," Worthing muttered. "We have a motive." But more information was needed for a complete picture. The detective decided to meet with Tamara Briggs, Isaiah's closest friend, who had been unable to attend the interview that morning due to severe emotional distress. Tamara agreed to talk to the detective at her home. She was a serious young woman, with an attentive gaze and a calm manner of speech that resembled Isaiah himself in the photographs. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Worthing began. "I understand how difficult this is for you." Tamara nodded. "Isaiah was like a brother to me. We've been friends since kindergarten." "So you knew him before his mother died?" "Before his stepmother came along." "Yes, changed him a lot. First losing his mom, then having a new woman in the house so quickly. It was hard on him." "How did he treat Serena?" "He tried to give her a chance at first. Isaiah was reasonable, realized his father needed support. But gradually, he began to notice inconsistencies." "What kind of inconsistencies?" "Serena played the role of the perfect wife and stepmother in public. But at home, she was cold, calculating, interested only in Mr. Bennett's status and money. Isaiah said he'd never seen Serena look at his father with real affection." "And lately? Did Isaiah mention any specific problems with his stepmother?" Tamara hesitated, then pulled out her cell phone. "2 weeks ago, he sent me a text. Said he'd discovered something awful about Serena and didn't know what to do." She showed Worthing the correspondence. Isaiah had written, "Caught her. This affair has been going on for months. I don't know whether to tell my father. It would ruin him." "Did he mention the name of the man Serena was having an affair with?" "No, but I think it was Mr. Jenkins." Isaiah said several times that it's strange how often she and Serena found themselves alone together, always to discuss his academic success. "And what did he decide to do with this information?" "In the last text he sent me, the morning before graduation, he wrote that he couldn't keep quiet any longer, that he would tell his father the truth right after the ceremony. It was important information." Worthing thanked Tamara and returned to the station, where more developments awaited him. Officer Tyrone Maxwell, who was in charge of reviewing financial and medical records, reported an interesting detail. "Detective, we found that Serena Bennett has been seeing Dr. Clarissa Monroe, a psychiatrist, on a regular basis. She has prescriptions for several potent drugs, including sleeping pills containing substances similar to those found in Isaiah's blood." "Clarissa Monroe," Worthing hesitated. "That name is familiar to me. She's Serena Bennett's best friend. They went to college together. According to social media, they see each other often, travel together. So Serena had access to the same drugs that were used to dope Isaiah." "Exactly." At that moment, a member of the tech department entered the office with a flash drive. "Detective Worthing, we've analyzed the school's security footage. You might want to take a look at this." Worthing turned on the video on his computer. Despite the grainy image, you could clearly make out Serena Bennett approaching the drinks table about half an hour before the estimated time of Isaiah's death. She looked around, then quickly added something to one of the punch glasses. A few minutes later, Isaiah approached the table, and Serena held out that particular glass to him. "We have her," Worthing pronounced. "We have motive, and now we have proof." Sunlight streamed through the blinds in Detective Elijah Worthing's office. Lakemont was bathed in the typical Florida summer heat, but the police station room was cool with air conditioning and a tense investigative atmosphere. The detective methodically laid out on the table the evidence gathered over the past 2 days. Crime scene photos, toxicology reports, printouts of messages from Isaiah's phone, and finally, the surveillance footage that captured the moment Serena slipped something into her stepson's drink. Worthing was almost certain that Serena Bennett had killed Isaiah to cover up her affair with the history teacher. But to be absolutely certain, he needed hard evidence and a confession. He went through Isaiah's cell phone messages one more time. Among them, he found a note dated the day of graduation. "Talk to Dad after the ceremony. Can't keep quiet anymore. He deserves to know the truth." It confirmed what Tamara said about her friend's intentions. Worthing also discovered a draft of an email addressed to Darren Bennett, with photos of Serena and Corey Jenkins attached. The letter had not been sent. Isaiah probably planned to show it to his father in person after graduation. "We're getting a search warrant for the Bennett's house today," Worthing told his assistant, Officer Jamal Harris. "I want to find those pills. Do you think she's careless enough to keep them at home?" Harris asked. "Serena thinks she's smarter than everyone else. People of that type rarely get rid of evidence completely. They're sure no one will ever guess to look for it." An hour later, the judge signed the warrant, and Worthing and a group of officers headed toward the Bennett family home, a sprawling two-story mansion in the upscale Lakemont neighborhood. Darren Bennett was at work, and Serena greeted the police officers with icy calm. "To what do I owe this attention, detective?" she asked, standing in the doorway in an immaculate white suit. "We have a warrant to search your home, Mrs. Bennett," Worthing replied, holding out the document. "It's part of the investigation into Isaiah's death." Serena ran her eyes over the paper. "I don't understand what you hope to find here. My stepson died at school from an accident." "That's what we're trying to find out," the detective said calmly as he made his way into the house. The search began in the kitchen and living room, then moved to Darren's office and finally to the master bedroom. Serena watched the process with her arms crossed over her chest and a cold smile. "You're wasting your time, detective. I'd offer you tea, but I'm afraid you'd suspect me of trying to poison you." Worthing did not respond to the provocation. He methodically examined Serena's dressing table, going through numerous jars of creams and perfumes. In the bathroom, Officer Harris discovered the first clue, a prescription vial of pills prescribed by Dr. Clarissa Monroe. The drug matched the one found in Isaiah's blood. "These are my sleeping pills," Serena explained, noticing the interest of the police officers. "I've been having trouble sleeping since Isaiah's death. Clary, my friend and my doctor, prescribed them for me." "When exactly did she write that prescription?" Worthing asked. 3 days ago. You can check the date on the label." The detective nodded. It was indeed a fresh prescription, written after Isaiah's death. But that didn't mean Serena hadn't had access to the same drug before. The search continued in Serena's dressing room. One of the officers discovered a safe hidden behind a row of designer dresses. "The key, please," Worthing addressed Serena. "There's only jewelry and documents in there," she replied. "Personal effects. The key, Mrs. Bennett." With apparent reluctance, Serena pulled a small key from a box on the dressing table. Worthing opened the safe and began methodically going through its contents. Among the jewelry, real estate documents, and wads of cash, he found a small plastic pillbox without a label. Inside were small white pills very similar to those in the prescription vial. "What are these, Mrs. Bennett?" "I have no idea," Serena shrugged. "Probably some old medicine. I don't remember everything kept in the safe." Worthing handed the box to the forensic scientist for immediate analysis. "We'll see if it matches the drug found in Isaiah's blood." Serena's face remained unperturbed, but the detective noticed her fingers clench into a fist. "Mrs. Bennett, I'd like you to come with us to the station for a statement." "I've already testified. We have some new questions." At the police station, Worthing escorted Serena into the interrogation room, a small room with gray walls and a table in the middle. He offered her water, which she rejected, and began recording. "Mrs. Bennett, tell us again about your actions during prom night." Serena sighed with the look of someone forced to explain the obvious. "We arrived with Darren around 7 o'clock in the evening, socialized with the other parents, took pictures with Isaiah. Then he retreated to his friends, and I stayed with my husband." "You didn't go away? Not for long? To the ladies' room? To the drinks table?" "Nothing out of the ordinary." "You brought Isaiah punch." Serena tensed slightly. "I may have. I don't remember exactly." Worthing placed a printout of the CCTV footage on the table. "That's you, Mrs. Bennett. You're pouring the punch and adding something to the glass." "I don't see anything of the sort in that grainy image. I was just pouring a drink." The experts, on the other hand, see it differently. "What did you add to Isaiah's glass, Mrs. Bennett?" Nothing. That's absurd. Worthing silently laid the next photograph on the table, Serena handing the glass to Isaiah. Did you follow him afterward? No. I went back to my husband. That's odd, because the other cameras show you walking in the same direction as Isaiah a couple of minutes after him. Serena nervously adjusted the collar of her blouse. I don't remember exactly all my movements. It was an emotional evening. What about your affair with Corey Jenkins? The question seemed to catch Serena off guard. She quickly regained her composure, but the second of confusion was noticeable. I don't know what you mean. Mr. Jenkins is my stepson's teacher. Our relationship is purely formal. Worthing laid the printouts of photos from Isaiah's phone on the table. Serena and Corey holding hands in a coffee shop, kissing in the car, walking into a motel together. Isaiah knew about your affair, the detective said, and was going to tell his father right after graduation. Serena was silent, looking at the photos. We found a draft of a letter to Darren with those pictures in Isaiah's phone. He didn't have time to send it. That's an invasion of privacy, Serena finally uttered. Isaiah was following me. It's abnormal. And you think it's normal to cheat on your husband with his son's teacher? My personal life had nothing to do with Isaiah's death. It was an accident. At that moment, an officer entered the room and handed Worthing a note. After reading it, the detective smiled. The pills from your safe, Mrs. Bennett, preliminary analysis indicates that they are flunitrazepam, the same substance that was found in Isaiah's blood. Serena maintained her outward calm, but her eyes raced feverishly. I don't know anything about that. Someone could have planted them in my safe, to which only you have a key. That's an interesting theory. Worthing decided to change tactics. We have another witness, Mrs. Bennett. Alma Rodriguez, the school janitor. She saw you coming out of the boys' restroom around the time Isaiah died. According to her, you looked agitated, with wet sleeves. It wasn't entirely true. The cleaning lady had indeed seen Serena outside the restroom, but she hadn't remembered the exact time, nor had she mentioned wet sleeves. The bluff had worked, however. That woman doesn't understand anything, Serena exclaimed. I was looking for Isaiah. Darren wanted to take a family photo. And you found him in the restroom? Yes. I looked in, but I didn't see anyone. All the stalls were closed. You didn't check to see if anyone was in the stalls? You didn't call for Isaiah? Serena was starting to get nervous. I don't remember exactly. It all happened so fast. Here's what I think, Mrs. Bennett, Worthing said, pitching forward. Isaiah found out about your affair with Corey Jenkins. He was following you, gathering evidence, and was going to tell his father everything. You couldn't let that happen. Divorce would take away your comfortable life, your reputation, your money. So you decided to get rid of your stepson by faking an accident at the prom. That's absurd, Serena whispered. You slipped flunitrazepam into his drink. When the drug began to take effect, you followed him into the restroom. Isaiah felt sick, bent over the toilet, and you took advantage of his helpless state and drowned him. No, I didn't do that. Your fingerprints are on the toilet stall door handle, Mrs. Bennett. The cameras recorded you putting something in Isaiah's drink. The same drug found in your safe was found in the victim's blood. You had motive, opportunity, and means. Serena dropped her head into her hands. A heavy silence hung in the room, broken only by the hum of the air conditioner. He should have stayed out of my life, she finally said in a quiet voice. Always so right, so principled, the perfect son. And me, I was just trying to be happy. Do you admit to killing Isaiah Bennett? Serena lifted her head. There were no tears in her eyes, only weariness and something resembling relief. I didn't mean to do that, just wanted him to be quiet. Give me time to explain things to Darren in my own way. But he was so stubborn. What happened in the bathroom, Mrs. Bennett? I was watching him when I saw him getting sick. I went after him. He was leaning over the toilet bowl and I just held his head. First, I wanted to talk to him, to convince him not to tell Darren. But he wouldn't listen. He said I wasn't worthy of his father, that he'd tell him the truth. And then I just wouldn't let him go. held him until he stopped resisting. Worthing wrote down the confession and read Serena her rights. The woman listened with a detached look, as if everything that was happening to someone else. "He's going to find out anyway," she said as the officers handcuffed her. "Everyone's going to find out now." That evening, Worthing sat in his office, finishing his report. Isaiah Bennett's case was solved. The killer had confessed and was awaiting trial. But the detective did not feel the usual satisfaction of a completed investigation. He thought of Darren Bennett, who had lost his son one day and learned that the wife he trusted had not only cheated on him, but had become the murderer of his child. He thought of Isaiah, the bright, principled boy whose life had been cut short so early because of other people's secrets. Worthing closed the case file. Serena Bennett had built her life on a lie, creating the illusion of a perfect family. When that illusion was threatened, she chose to commit a terrible crime just to maintain the appearance of prosperity. But in the end, all the masks were torn off, revealing the true face. Cold, calculating, capable of murder. "All secrets come to light," the detective muttered, turning off the office light. "Always. If the story hit you hard, made you angry, or opened your eyes, like the video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. We uncover the hidden truths, the crimes people try to forget, and the victims who deserve to be remembered. Stay with us. More powerful stories are coming.